Is y'all ready out here? Yeah. All right, okay. Here we go, folks. Go Bills, for we are here to cheer for you. Go Bills, we are your fans so true.
Welcome to the PDR podcast, two unqualified dudes talking Buffalo Bills football. We've been on a hiatus for a while, personal creative hiatuses. It's been like 3 weeks since we did an episode, so good to be back. I am Josh Folan, and I'm with
Phil Burke.
Yes, and we are doing this for the first time remotely. We are on different sides of Manhattan right now, so
soon to be on different sides of the country.
Yeah, that'll be even more impressive when we do that. But so it'll be interesting to see whether this actually turns out into something that we can upload. So if you are hearing this, then we succeeded at some technology shit that we weren't too sure we could do.
Horrible technology. Yeah. Horrible.
I don't consider myself as bad as Phil, but
I am really bad though.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather just have two soup cans with a string.
Well, if this doesn't work, we could try that as our next option. Okay, so yes, on to the Buffalo Bills, the purpose of this conversation. Current event shit. We can start with TYROD WATCH.
What is going on?
What is going on with TYROD?
I have please explain to me what is going on. Is he in? Is he out? Are they keeping him to trade? What is doing?
I have a number of bullet points. Like I said, it compounds the confusion because it's like 3 weeks of shit leading up to free agency when obviously all these big decisions are going to be made. But I'd say probably 2 weeks ago now, I saw there was a blurb that came out that that makes it look like our toddler TYROD jerseys are going to be useful next year.
Really?
That they're not going to need to be retired. Basically, the Bills said, Brandon Beane and McDermott said that they are not scared of the $6 million roster bonus they have to pay TYROD on the 16th of March, which is like the second day of free agency, I believe.
Right.
Which that was the big thing. Like everyone was saying that, why in the fuck would you pay a guy $6 million and then cut him, So like basically that meaning if he's going to get cut, they're going to, and that makes sense because why pay $18 million to a guy that they supposedly don't want? Then it's definitely going to happen before that roster bonus gets paid on the 16th. And basically Beane and McDermott said the opposite of that. They said that the $6 million roster bonus, they don't give a shit about it. They're happy to pay it. And, even if not that they were suggesting they want to trade him, they're saying, they're doing the dance that front offices always do. They're saying that, we like TYROD. We intend on keeping him until something, until a better, we're always looking to improve the team, but there's no current plans to move him. And they're more than happy to pay the $6 million roster bonus and deal with whatever going forward. And that was an Ian Rappaport report. So that, basically, they won't move on with them out of replacement in place, which is, kind of contrary to, like I said, what everyone's been saying. All the talking heads that talk about the Bills are pretty certain that they are done with TYROD. And I don't disagree with that because they benched his ass for a 5th round draft pick last year in the middle of a playoff race, which is not the most glowing endorsement of a player, Right. So that was the one thing. And then there was also, in addition to that, little buzz things about, maybe Miami having an interest in him, which, there's always, because Ryan Tannehill sucks. So it's no surprise. There's usually, and he had the injury last year too, to further that concern that they might have for their quarterback position. And it's kind of funny to me because that's the one team that he lights up every time he plays, So like the rest of the league is probably not even kind of afraid of Tyrod Taylor, but every time Miami comes to town or we go down there, Miami in the past 3 years, he has fucking destroyed them. And this year was no different. So it's funny that they would be, if that report has any validity to it, that they would be like somehow delusioned by the individual performances he's hung on them and not looked at the full body of work and been like, yeah, he makes some plays, but he also misses a lot of plays, like everyone. Definitely the Bills seem to think about him. So that's, I guess hearing that rundown, And then, there's been a million reports of like what their interests are draft wise with quarterbacks, that they're making calls, looking to move up. Denver and San Francisco are some of the reports that open for business is the quote they keep using of John Elway's to talk trade.
And where Denver and San Francisco on the list?
Denver is the 5th pick. And San Francisco, I'm not exactly sure offhand. I want to say high single digits, like 8 or 9. And so you're
saying that Buffalo could trade the 21st and the 22nd to trade up, get the 5th draft pick, and then arguably they would be drafting a quarterback.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I can't foresee them moving up for any other position. Right. I don't think. Given, I mean, they seem to have that as evidenced by all the trades where they were building draft picks and last year trading down. Like I think they would much rather do that, and I would much rather them use these picks too and not move up. But it's certainly, I think we said last time, it's impossible to not be exciting to be drafting a quarterback that supposedly or could be your franchise quarterback that takes you to the promised land for the next decade plus. So it's impossible to not be excited by that idea. But I do hate the idea of fucking trading a bunch of assets. Like what again, these are just reports and somewhat meaningless, but what they're saying is, if Denver signs Kirk Cousins, they're one of the leaders in the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. So if they pick him up via free agency, then they're obviously not looking to draft a quarterback, and they are open to moving down. And what they might want to do that, because it's kind of a big jump value-wise, obviously going 5th to 21st, 22nd. So it's certainly going to take some fucking chips, but they're saying that, in Denver's case in particular, that they might be, those 2 first-rounders and maybe another high asset this year, which doesn't make me want to jump out the window too bad. Like, I don't think that's
really, because speaking you off a lot of ledges is usually my
number one priority.
My MO.
Rarely is mine, but that's not too bad. Like the idea, which is another just report, but I've heard a lot. It may take those 2 picks and next year's first rounder, and that shipping off your whole first round for 2 years is a good way. If that quarterback isn't fucking unreal, is a good way to set your fucking organization back a half decade or more. So I think, and that scares the shit out of me.
I agree.
They've done that before.
That's very Billsy.
That's very Billsy.
Hold on. Yeah. So March 14th, 4 p.m. That's when the draft starts. Free agency. So when that goes, right, then the first few weeks are a lot about sort of where Buffalo is going to go, and sort of I guess will dictate at least. We'll have a better idea of their plan of attack come draft day.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly one of the fucking things that keeps getting said too. How this year, usually you don't have franchise quarterbacks in free agency. Like teams don't let that doesn't happen. So there are very few, if any, previous examples of free agency having such a impact on what teams are going to do in the draft. And certainly this year it's Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum is now in the is in the mix because the Vikings are not franchising him. They're letting him go into free agency. They have Teddy Bridgewater, your boy too.
Yeah. What about TB?
And then also the walking injury. What's his name? Sam Bradford. So they have 3 quarterbacks that aren't too bad. that aren't too bad walking into free agency. There's the Nick Foles still in play. If a team is willing to step up to the plate and make a trade for him. But yeah, it's like basically a week from it's the 9th today. So a week from today is that TYROD day, that 16th. So if it would, even whatever they can say whatever they want, but they would love, I'm sure, to, if they are going to trade him, do that before. Or cut him or whatever, any sort of move they're going to make, they would certainly love to do before that $6 million lands on their plate for this year. So by next week, this time, we should have a very good idea
of what's going on.
Yes, of how prominently we should keep those TYROD jerseys, those toddler TYROD jerseys placed in our closet for next year, because the decision should be made. If he's still on the roster next Friday morning, then barring some sort of like injury where a team changes their opinion on the value of TYROD because they're in a bind quarterback wise, or a team that really thinks they can get Kirk Cousins or Case Keenum, one of those free agents, and doesn't, and down the line is again in a bind for quarterback and is willing to trade something for him, we should know whether we're going to be talking TYROD in 2018 or not, which is
right. And I mean, there's also the attitude and the option of not, of completely just stacking up around and then maybe taking another year. You know what I mean? Before
I think there'll be mutiny. I really do if they do that. But it's not because he's not fucking bad. Like we've had this debate multiple times.
Yeah.
He's not awful, and you could say that maybe that offensive coordinator did a shitty job, and maybe Officer Dibble will do a better job this year. And then yes, if you give him some more to work with, maybe all that changes. But I think there'll be mutiny if they do. I think fans will be pissed off. And I can't even. I don't even. I can't I've already said I don't want them to just mortgage the fucking farm to get one of these guys in the draft, and I certainly don't want them to sign Cousins or any of those fucking free agents, save for maybe a Bridgewater on a discount deal. But it would be. I don't know. It's such an interesting. It's the most interesting thing off-season wise the Bills have had going on. Offseason-Palooza is probably what I'm going to name this episode.
Okay.
That they've had in a long time, and then that's. And on one hand, cool, but on the other hand, terrifying.
and then what about and then sort of talking about them being in on like AJ McCarron or
right,
Mike Glennon or something,
That was it. Those were new things too. Yeah, AJ McCarron won his little whatever the hell whatever they call it, Players Association thing to become a free agent. So he's on the market now, and that could affect the Bills in multiple ways. Like I don't. I'd be surprised to hear that they have a genuine interest in him themselves to acquire him and have him be our guy next year.
Right.
But the word is that what's his name in Cleveland, the Cleveland coach who was in Cincinnati prior to and was around when they drafted him and has worked with them, is really, really high on him. And they tried to trade for him last year when they fucked that very Brownsy fashion, fuck that trade up. So they've already tried to get him once. Odds are they probably are going to try to get him again now that it won't even cost them some draft capital.
Right.
So maybe that changes. Again, they're one of the Kirk Cousins players, so maybe that makes it easier for Denver to get him, and maybe that makes it easier for the Bills to get Denver's pick via domino effect. So it certainly does not hurt. It's a good thing. The more quarterbacks in free agency that could remove the need for teams to draft quarterbacks make the Bills' choices and situation better. So I'm happy that happened. I hope they're not interested in him firsthand, because I don't think AJ McCarron. I don't know. Do you remember watching that playoff game that he played?
Which one was that?
It was a couple years ago. I believe 2 years. I'm pretty sure 2 years ago, and they were playing Pittsburgh, and it was that shit show game. Dalton got hurt right before the game. Or the week before the game or something. I think McCarron did some mop-up duty in either a meaningless or an already won Week 17 game, and then they had, I think it was a wild card game in Pittsburgh, and they were winning that. He played pretty well, and they were winning the game, and then the fucking Bengals just completely shit the bed and found a way to lose that game, and McCarron was a part of that. So. Yeah, I mean, that's the only real body of, if you even call that a body of work that he has, and I certainly don't think that's a reliable fucking measure. It's not enough to make me want to give the guy a deal and stop looking for quarterbacks.
All right.
Certainly.
Well, good. Then I suppose we're just gonna have to sort of wait and see which pieces on the board are moved before anything happens.
Yeah, man. definitely gonna be a cool week. And free agency is always just so exciting too, because I'm sure they'll make some moves. And that would be the next current events thing that we should probably go to, is they have been making moves even before free agency started. And 3 signings, Vontae Davis, Chris Ivory, and I'm never gonna pronounce the last guy's name anywhere near correct. Owa Adigzwa or whatever it is from the Giants. That's right. Yeah. I'll probably my if he does actually make the team,
double up,
which is not a certainty. Yeah, maybe that I was going to say either coming up with a good nickname or actually learning his real name will be one of the more difficult parts of this season, probably. The big thing with those 3 guys is they don't factor into the compensatory pick formula. So if they do make the team and they replace guys who we otherwise would have had to sign free agents in the formal free agency period with, we should be in an advantageous position for free draft picks next year, which is one of the big stories around these guys, that last year we had to sign a bunch of guys to fill holes, and it cost us, even though we had some free agency departures. Like Stephon Gilmore could have easily been a 3rd-round pick for us if we wouldn't have had to sign a bunch of guys to offset that. The formula for that is based on like the amount of money the guy signed for, I think, and kind of, basically just how good the players are. I'm
going to go right on ahead and say, what are you talking about? I have no idea what's going on here.
Okay, so basically, if a guy, Stephon Gilmore signed with the Patriots last year, and that's a free agency departure. And if a team, the league has a system in place where if a team has a lopsided free agency departure pool one year, the following year they are given draft picks. They're given free draft picks in addition to the, you're given one in each round each year. And these don't usually, the highest you can get, I think, is the 3rd-round pick. And then, it goes down from there based on the amount of money that the players were signed for by the other teams. And, I'm not sure exactly what the formula is. I'm sure it's fucking complicated. But basically, players leave. If you get abandoned in free agency, players abandon you in free agency, and you don't sign players to replace them, then you get more draft picks, with the idea being, I don't know, whatever the competitive advantage reasoning is for that. So last year, they didn't get any picks for this year, really, or if they did, I don't think they got any, because even though they lost what is a quasi or on the fringe of Pro Bowl player in Stephon Gilmore, they signed they signed Mike Tolbert, they signed Patrick DeMarco, they signed fucking Mika Hyde, they signed Jordan, they signed all these guys that canceled that out. So it's been a big, and they didn't have, one of the things they've said about this is Brandon Beane wasn't on board for free agency last year. So we didn't have a GM to focus on this shit. So Sean McDermott as a coach was kind of doing this by himself. He had Doug Whaley, but Doug Whaley was like a lame duck GM at the time. So, and he obviously wasn't very good in their eyes. So because they fired his ass. So, this year we have a guy who is like supposed to be on top of this shit in Brandon Beane. And it looks like he is, because he's signing these guys to fill these holes, with the anticipation that we're probably going to let Jordan Matthews go. He's going to want more money than he's worth. Preston Brown could leave and get a decent-sized deal. So if we let these guys walk and replace them with these players who, because they were released by their team and they're not just free agents, they don't factor into that formula. So, this Vontae Davis, who's a former Pro Bowl cornerback out of Indianapolis, I liked that signing a lot. He, shopped around, I think, with San Francisco and Cleveland, so he didn't have much to choose from. So it's not that much of a fucking compliment, I guess, that he chose us over them. But he's on a 1-year deal, and him replacing EJ Gaines, that's another guy that they could let walk theoretically. So if that fills that hole and they don't have to give EJ Gaines a bunch of money, because he probably will warrant a few more bucks than he's worth. That's just how free agency works. And then we signed Chris Ivory to do the backup running back thing, so we can let Mike Tolbert go.
Why would you ever want the big Tol?
Thank fucking God. Not that I'm like not that I'm like a huge Chris Ivory.
The big
Chris Ivory.
The big booth in the back, baby.
Yeah, fucking Mike Tolbert. Chris Ivory had some good years with the Jets, and I think he went to the Pro Bowl with the Saints. So he's had some good years, and he's a decent power back. So it does that thing that I think they had in mind with Mike Tolbert. that you have like a change of pace back that is different than LaShawn McCoy. And probably certainly not as far. I mean, he's not young either. And he's had 2 relatively down years the past 2 years in Jacksonville, but I definitely think it's an upgrade, and it's attractive because it doesn't affect that compensatory pick formula thing. And then same thing with the 00. What have you from the Giants? He was a guy.
What have you?
Yeah, I vaguely remember hearing the name, so he wasn't just like, I don't know who the fuck is this guy. Maybe that's just because we're in New York and you hear news, about players that you wouldn't otherwise hear because of that being right. Local. But he's a pass rushing specialist, linebacker, defensive end, kind of hybrid thing, not terribly different than the role that Jerry Hughes plays on the team. And I guess he was suspended last year for PEDs, and they cut his ass. Yeah, they cut his ass.
I wonder if they took a survey around the league and said, what's your favorite PED? Like, they should go around and talk. I wonder what, if you could, choose in a fantasy land to have whatever performance enhancing drug. I wonder what, and then what would be great is, taking the NFL, the NHL, MLB, NBA, and seeing where, and then going to the Russians, and that's where we'd send the results, because then the Russians could tell us if we're on the right track.
Yeah, that would be a fun study. It would
be an interesting study.
It'd probably be very difficult to get honest participation. That's trying to think of the
everybody
term.
Would say weed.
Yeah, but blind. Yeah. What's that called? I'm trying to think back to my what would be more probably middle school science days. Blind subject, blind test, whatever. That would probably be difficult to get honest data for, though.
What do you think
much
about?
Fun as
I know which word you're talking about.
Yeah.
Neither did I.
It'll come to me in the shower later today. So those are the kind of the I guess the current events.
Will I be in the shower with you when it comes to you?
No, you're on the other side of town, dude.
Oh, dag nabbit.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do the next episode from before I leave for LA. We'll do the next episode from fucking a shared shower, Phil, a really intimate setting,
right?
For our physical departure.
Wow.
Although I'm sure it will make our opportunities being on separate coasts. It will make the opportunities that I'm sure will occasionally arise extra special, where we can record episodes in person together.
Wow.
We certainly do jump to these 2 towns every now and again. Both of us do.
Very true.
That'll make those very special.
Oh, good.
I'll certainly be back. We'll be able to do a live game from the Jets game. I have to come back for that, or a live episode from the Jets game.
Wow.
We'll do it. We'll do the Cavs podcast I listen to. It's the one I listen to is Locked On Cavs or something like that. And the guy, it's not fucking ESPN or anything. It's just some dude that they have doing the Cleveland team, and he does. Yeah, they go to games just with tickets. They're just normal dudes at games, and they will do sometimes episodes just they stick around and do the after the game ends and just do them from the seats. You'll hear them breaking down bleachers and shit.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, they do.
They don't have a press booth that they can do it in a really fucking.
I like that.
Space,
that's good.
Which is cool. I would love to do one from the fucking emptying out Jets stands after all those sad Jets fans file out.
Easy, killer. Well, it depends on what goes on in the next couple of months.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
What else we got? What's on the list?
What's on the list here? Well, one, it's probably it for current event stuff. I mean, we had I have done. Well, it's funny. I did the offense preview that I've had dialed up to do for a while. As far as offense free agents, the 2 positions I had been looking at were wide receiver and running back. And signing Chris Ivory the other day completely negated the use of the running back research I had done, because I highly doubt. I think they may still draft one in the later rounds, but I highly doubt they're going to sign anyone additionally beyond Chris Ivory, because that would be a waste of money and fucking cap space to have multiple backup running backs that are costing you dough.
Right.
So I had to pretty much junk that information, and I figured the next best or most important hole to fill that could be a free agency thing would be center because of Eric Wood's retirement. So,
but of course,
the 2 positions I have are center and wide receivers. I guess we'll go with the less glamorous of the 2. first in the centers, and there's not a lot. The three that I saw based on age and not having horrific injury problems, even though two of these guys do. The most attractive one would be Denver's Matt Paradis, which is a restricted free agent, which kind of reduces his attractiveness because we have to give them some sort of something based on the contract we sign him to draft pick wise.
Right.
If we do sign him. So, I don't know. That's not something that really jives necessarily with this front office's philosophy seemingly. So I that's probably one of the least likely, even though he is probably the most attractive. He's 28. He's played well. And then the other two were the Giants, Weston Richburg, and the Lions' Travis Swanson, which I know you don't know who these guys are because I had never even heard their name myself.
I have no clue.
Yeah, so they're both 27. They both have somewhat concussion histories that question their long-term viability or whether or not they'll be safe pickups long-term because, concussions are weird. One missed more time than the other. I believe it was Weston with the Giants missed more time last year than Travis with that problem. But, that's obviously something that they have to responsibly assess and decide on whether or not it's a reoccurring chronic problem.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry, go on.
Well, that would basically be it.
Yeah. Now, where's the historical documentation for drafting a center, a first-year center, a big guy who can be in the middle of your O-line and do a good job? Is that something that people do, or is that a possibility? Or even in the second or third round, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I mean I wouldn't say centers are probably. Interior offensive linemen, I think, are usually a little degraded, and I don't think you see a lot of them. It's usually the tackles that that are first round guys more regularly. So it's not a common occurrence. They have been. I mentioned this last time, but the one guy that they're saying or were saying until he injured himself at the combine, Billy Price out of my alma mater, Ohio State, is one of the guys that they were saying one, kind of attributing to the Bills because of Eric Wood's departure, and two, kind of saying that he might be worth the pick range that the Bills are in currently, the low 20s to low to mid 20s. So, I guess he hurt a pectoral muscle or some shit bench pressing, and supposedly it's not a big deal and he'll be fine by camp, but injuries always freak people out. So I'm sure that hurts his status a little bit, and maybe that does push him into the second round. I think in the second round, it would be a value pick, especially if they're able to they have 2 second rounders. So if they're able to keep them both, that probably is a good value in the second round. I don't know if it's a good value in the first round if they stay at 21 and 22. Optimally, I would much rather see it get filled in the draft with a guy that they're fucking feeling strong about, because I don't think any one of these three guys is knock your socks off. Oh my God, get him. He's worth whatever you have to pay him, So I would much rather be that, but it's a value. It's a value situation, I think, with whether or not it gets addressed in the draft. But yeah, he would be that would be the only guy literally that I've even kind of heard any buzz about center wise. But I also think I'm pretty sure that they drafted Eric Wood as a guard originally, and he was, I'm pretty sure, a first round pick. I think it was him and Andy Levitri that they drafted both in the first round. I think they had 2 first round picks, or maybe it was a first, and in the second round they picked up. Yeah, that they picked those guys up, and they ended up. Levitri left to go to the Falcons, or either the Falcons. I think he played in Atlanta and Tennessee, and I can't remember which one he left the Bills for. But he signed for a ton of money, and they let him go, but they kept Eric Wood, and that was a high interior lineman pick. But I think that would be the last one, and it doesn't happen often. So that's where that position stands, and then the much sexier position that I think they need address would be wide receiver, and definitely the sexiest guy on the list that I found, and it's probably not sexy for everyone, but Josh Gordon in Cleveland to me. And part of this is because maybe I have seen him a lot and heard about him a lot because I'm from Cleveland, and I've had my uncle and all my Browns fans buddies talk about him so much. But I've also, caught a couple games and seen him play. And the guy, I mean, even, he hadn't played in 3 fucking years, and he came back last year. He was incredible
And he's a free agent.
He's a flat out free agent.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, he's only 27, even though he hasn't even played for 3 years. He has like crazy numbers already. Didn't
What
play
happened
for
to
3
him?
years. Pot, it was a bunch of substance abuse stuff. I think what it was technically was each time was pot, but I think he also has, just substance abuse problems in general. Yeah.
So you're hoping he found Jesus and he's ready to go?
Yeah, well, supposedly, he's made strides, and he was finally reinstated midway through last season, and he started on that awful Browns team that went 0-16. He was when Deshaun Kaiser. Is that his name? Deshaun? Whatever Kaiser they had playing quarterback that was not good either. He was still putting up. He had a couple games that were like 200-yard fucking multi-touchdown games. So he's just an amazing player. Obviously, the question is whether or not he can keep his head on straight. And I think that's the Bills are so. The McDermott is so processed, do the right thing, fucking character is important kind of guy that I question whether they'd be willing to make that, take that leap with someone who has those question marks.
Right.
But talent-wise, I mean, 2 years ago or whenever it was when he was like about to get reinstated before he ended up getting suspended again. There's this whole time they've been talking, because he's so good, even though he's suspended, that there's been talk about trading him the whole time. And I was like all for, especially, it's not going to cost you shit for a guy who's suspended. Fucking send him a 6th-round pick or whatever. And if he fucking never gets his shit together, whatever. But if that guy comes on the field, and this is back when we still had Watkins, if we have Watkins and him playing across from each other, a chimp could fucking excel a quarterback, because no defense can cover the two of them at the same time.
Do you think there's a possibility for Sammy coming?
Well, he's on the list too, dude. And that's, there was talk that they were going to franchise him, and they didn't. They franchised some DB of theirs instead. And that's, I don't know, man. That's another situation where like he stayed healthy last year, so that was like the big question with him. It was never talent. And I can think of just offhand from the Bills hype videos that I edit together, I can think of a handful of one-handed amazing catches that are in those highlight reels that I would love to see happening on our team again.
Right.
And he kind of proved last year that he's not chronically injured, because he played the whole season without any missing any games. I don't think he missed any, actually. I think the bigger question there is whether or not he's pissed off, that whether one, he wants to come to a team that he clearly wasn't ever utilized to his fullest potential. The passing game here has never been good enough to really use him the way he should be used, or was never used the way he should be used. And, they traded him, and like, I don't, they can say it's a business or whatever, but there's got to be, it would be awfully hard to not be at least somewhat, off-put by a team saying, that's it, we're just fucking, we don't want you here anymore, regardless of how business related that decision might have been. They got EJ Gaines on a 2nd-round pick, which is pretty nice, especially because EJ Gaines worked out when he was healthy. That's a pretty nice haul and you don't usually get good value on trading players in the NFL, and I think they did with him.
Speaking of trade, and this will be sort of my last question about this, and we could talk about this other free agency as well, but did you read or hear about any of this trading with the New York Giants, trading up for their 2nd pick? Picks or whatever.
That's in the group of the thing. I guess we didn't really flesh out that discussion earlier about when we were talking about Denver and San Francisco. The Giants is the thing too, because they're supposedly committed to Eli Manning. They canned all the guys that benched him last year, basically. So
that's awesome.
Supposedly the new regime is committed to him, and they're not going to move him. They're not going to cut him or move him or whatever, which insinuates that. I don't know. I think even if you're going to say that, I think it at that. If I was a Giants fan, I would be irate if they moved out of that position, because even if you're going to say we're keeping Eli Manning around,
better get somebody to go. Yeah, especially if Eli goes down, he's not a young man anymore.
No, he's 37. So even if he does, the counter argument to that is, if you're going to keep him and you're sticking with him, they do need help on that team. That's a bad fucking team. So other than OBJ, he didn't really have much. Like, one of the Saquon Barkley is the thing that they're saying, like, get him
Saquon.
Get him a lights out running back. So, because their running game was a nightmare last year. So, if you're going to stay, it's a little bit of an argument to say, like, if you're sticking with him, you can't just send him back in without using their draft position to improve his situation.
Sure.
But I think as a responsible GM, I think it's not easy to get to it's not easy to be bad enough to get the second pick.
Unless you're from Ohio in a town called Cleveland.
Yeah, unless you're them. So, the Giants certainly don't pick there often, I don't think. So, to me, it would be stupid not to use that pick and get one of those quarterbacks. But if they don't and they choose not to, they are certainly in that pool of people that are worth talking to for the Bills in an effort to try to trade up if they're trying to get one of these guys, So, that will be certainly something that's,
that'll flush itself out, that whole situation, I'm sure, in the next week or so.
Well, I was going to say, it's certainly the potential exists for something to happen in that front. I think it's much more likely that the Bills, if they make a move, it happens on draft day, which is one of the reasons we definitely have to do a draft day podcast because. Sure.
Like everyone else doing Bill's podcast.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if everyone would do one while it happens, So maybe we'll have a competitive advantage, a competitive listener attraction advantage by doing one. But to me, I just think it'll be fun, if nothing else, which is the chief purpose of any of this shit. Because I'm sure we've already established no one is listening to us for extremely esteemed Bills analysis.
No.
Hopefully we're entertaining, and I think that would be an opportunity for us to be at our most entertaining. With like I said, the teams that are biggest factors in that are the Giants, Denver, San Francisco. Those are probably the three that are the most likely to be open to a trade. Though, supposedly any GM is going to tell you that they're supposedly open for business. And
right, of course.
If the right value offer comes in, any pick is on the table.
But of course.
Yeah.
We want to talk about this turn back the clock game? What else you got?
Let's burn through the rest of those wide receivers.
Go ahead.
We talked about Gordon and Twatkins is what I like to call him. Sammy Twatkins is what my fantasy football group chat was. I was excited about him like all other Bills fans, and a lot of the first couple of years I definitely drafted him and had him on my team. And whenever he had a game and went off, they would say Twatkins be twerking. Which is where my TYROD be twerking idea came from.
Nice.
Super fun. Gordon and Watkins are two really great receivers that I think would not be bad if the money's right. Allen Robinson's another one. He's only 25 in Jacksonville. I think he was hurt a lot of last year, and their entire receiving core was hurt most of last year. But he's a guy who's demonstrated to be pretty good. Even with Blake Bortles throwing to him, which, hopefully whoever we have throwing the ball next year is better than Blake Bortles. This is a guy, Quincy Enunwa, man. He is a monster that 2 years ago, it was him, Decker, and Brandon Marshall that Fitzpatrick had that great year with.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And he was their third wide receiver, man. And I remember, that game where I was in Turkey, I think is that is it week 1 or week 2, the Thursday night game that I watched, man, he is just a monster. Like, he was playing a lot of slot receiver, going over the middle, and he's just fucking a huge dude that was destroying our secondary. And even when I think, actually, that might have been 3 years ago now, or 2, I don't know. But also last year, he got hurt last year and missed most of the season. But before that happened, it was just him alone. Like, Decker and Brandon Marshall were out of there. So he kind of became their de facto number one. And I guess that Robbie Thomas or Robbie, whatever his name is, Anderson, whatever.
Love his music, Rob Thomas. Oh, yeah.
Rob Thomas, yeah, he does.
Huge fan.
Well,
he's so smooth.
What was that? Yeah, the album in the late 90s, man. Fucking, that's, Smooth was
garbage. Crap. I hate that. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but God, I hate his music.
Really? I had the CD, dude. I had Push. I had that CD. But yeah, no. And then the track on the Santana. He had the big single off that Santana.
I like
album.
the girl in the video. I'm out. That's all I got. I'm more into that video. She's dancing. That's how I'm paying attention.
I don't think I've ever seen the video, so at least I don't think, unless it's subconscious, I saw it and I don't consciously remember it.
Right.
So that is not a factor in my affinity.
Alrighty. What else you got?
Yeah, but anyways, fuck it. So yeah, he looked really great, even kind of alone. And he's only 26, and I don't think that injury last year, he doesn't have any history of that, of injuries. So he's a guy that, I think would be an incredible slot addition, which if what's-her-name leaves, Jordan Matthews, then you need to fill that hole anyways. And I think he would be a great pickup. He's looked every time we've played the Jets with him. He has fucking looked great to me. And I don't think he's not a big name, or I don't think he's someone who'll command a ton of money. So that's also attractive, obviously. And the last two are restricted free agent Willie Snead in New Orleans. He's looked good, but that's also Drew Brees throwing to him, and everyone looks good when Drew Brees throws to him. So maybe that's not as attractive as it could be. But he's looked good, and he's young, 25. And then Taylor Gabriel has been the third guy in Atlanta, who's a super speedy guy who we lack speed, and is somewhat of an under-the-radar guy at only 27 that has played well, that could be a good pickup for the Bills in the speed department.
Cool.
So that would summate the PDR podcast 2018 free agency preview that took 2.5 months for us to sputter out.
Hey man, look, it's just a finish line that we get to. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's correct. That's the correct. So yeah, man, that's basically all the fucking topics we had. We have the term at the clock game we're gonna get to. Do you want to do? We're only at 41 here. Do you want to do a first pick thing with all the new information that we've had? A firstpick.com run through?
No. Let's save it. Let's save it till let's save it where it's like a bigger chunk of what we're doing.
Okay.
Because I don't want to like blast through it. Like, I think we should do a nice serious chunk, and you can explain why all my picks are really bad.
All right, I don't know. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The one thing, going to the turn back the clock game, though, the one thing that I couldn't get over is just watching. Well, I suppose you should explain which game it is first.
Yeah. So yeah, the game that I picked out off Andy Proven's channel. I throw him that nugget every time because it's so cool that he took the time to put these on the fucking internet. But I chose a 1991 game. With the Bears in Buffalo, which is week 5. Both teams were 4-0 going into the game, and it was on September 29th, 1991. So that is the game we watched for the turn back the clock game. So what were you going to...
Mike Ditka's sweater is awesome. Yeah. I really want. I miss those jerseys. There's something to be said, though. I think we've brought it up again before, but there's something to be said about those classic sort of Americana woolen sweaters with the bands and the colors, and especially when you get those, those Bears colors where it's like the blue, the orange, and brown, and it's just awesome. And I was just like, I was like, Mike Ditka, when do you not look bad?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, he is. I love the frequency with which they cut away to him. Is also just fucking phenomenal. Yeah, because he's fucking Ditka. There was I saw they must have the turf in Rich Stadium must have been newer. They must have just installed new turf, or
it was pretty bright.
So whatever. They must have just done it, because I saw one of the cutaways to the crowd. They
probably put it in there because they knew Mike was coming.
Yeah, maybe.
They had to step up for his fashion statement.
Yeah, one of the cutaways to the crowds, it was a multi-person. There was some time put into this too. It wasn't just one drunk dickhead with a placard above his head. It was a multi-person sign that was being held up in the crowd that said, because Ditka spits constantly. Every cutaway to them, he would spit like multiple times, and the sign said, "Don't spit on our new carpet, Spitka. They called him Spitka. And like, yeah, don't spit on our new carpet, which I don't know, amused me a little bit as far as, sports coverage goes.
That's terrific.
So yeah, that was fun. And yeah, Dick, which is great too, because he, the first half of that game, fucking nothing happened. But that's the game they wanted to play at the time, was like grind fucking meat grinder football, man. They wanted fucking low scoring games. They had that incredible defense that wasn't far removed from the 86 Bears. That was like the best defense ever. So, that's the game he wanted to play. Like it almost went into half 6-0. Literally fucking, it was a snooze fest first half. The Bills had one miss. They had a field goal blocked. A Norwood field goal got blocked, and then Kevin Butler, the Bears kicker, kicked 2 field goals. And up until the last drive before halftime, it was 6-0, and the Bills got the ball with like less than 2 minutes left, and fucking in K-gun fashion just drove down the field and threw a touchdown to Kelly had a touchdown to Al Edwards, which was Al Edwards' first NFL touchdown.
Oh, wow.
So Al Edwards was an 11th round draft pick.
Wow.
That year. And they don't even have 11 rounds in the draft anymore. Like the draft, the NFL draft used to be like 12 or fucking maybe even more rounds. And it's 7 rounds now. And even at 7 rounds, some of the players don't make the team. So like the fact that an 11th round draft pick, when they had that many more picks, had made the team is a somewhat notable thing. And yeah, that was his first touchdown catch. You could see he kept the ball and stuff.
That's good.
Cool.
That was a good game.
So yeah, it was a good game. It was like 37. Yeah, that touchdown was like a 37-yard bomb, which, like I said, they literally, I think Kelly, they had like 12 yards, like 2 first downs and 12 yards or some shit in an entire half of football, which the Bills offense was unreal that year. So that was a notable thing in of itself. That was pretty cool that they shook the rust off and went down the field so quickly to take it to 7-6 at halftime. And then they came out after halftime and fucking holy shit, did the game change.
No, it was good. It was good.
Yeah. Yep. They came out after halftime and they got the kickoff. They received the kickoff, and Thermal Thomas started balling immediately. He ripped off like 50 yards over 3 rushes. They scored another touchdown in less than 2 minutes.
Oh, good. It's good, and it's tough watching those games.
1991 is my favorite, man, and like it's totally a nostalgia thing. But that's the year of Super Tecmo Bowl. So that's the year. Dude, I know pretty much every player in the NFL. I know pretty much every fucking player that was on every fucking roster in the entire league from that year. It was just like when I really got into football for the first time, and the Bills were so fucking good, and Super Tecmo Bowl was the greatest game ever at the time. So I played the shit out of that, and just playing that game. I would play entire seasons in a day. So like, playing every team in that game, I got to know literally every single player of that, and then collecting football cards, obviously. So yeah, that's my favorite season probably ever of NFL football. So I know it so fucking well. So watching a game from that season is really fucking fun.
Cool.
And I knew all those fucking players on the Bears defense: Richard Dent, Steve McMichael, Fridge Perry, Mike Singletary. So yeah, that was a super fun game to watch. And then so that second touchdown, they went down in 2 minutes. Punched it in. It was a 4th down thing. They got to like the 7. Thurman carried the ball to the 1 on first down, and they had 2nd and 3rd down get stuffed. And then on 4th down, they gave the ball to Carwell Gardner, their fullback, rookie fullback, I believe, and he fumbled the ball into the end zone, and then ran in and fell on it. Which, if any other player would have fell on it, I don't think they would have got that. I don't think you can advance the ball on a fumble. I don't know. I'm not sure about exactly that. But either way, Carwell Gardner picked it up. So they scored a touchdown on a fumble recovery on 4th down to go up 14-6, which is awesome. And then the D came out. They kicked it off. The D comes out. And they pushed the Bears back like 20 fucking yards to a 4th and 25, 3 and out. They got to punt the ball again. And then Kelly and Thurman walk down the field and score another touchdown in a couple of minutes to make it 21-6, which is fucking super fucking fun third quarter. And going down the rest of the thing. So, yeah, it was 21-6. The announcers, dude, this was a random aside, just listening to the announcers. On multiple occasions, the two guys that did that game, Merlin Olsen was one of them, who was like a former player. I think he played for the Rams, a defensive tackle or some shit. And then, I don't know the other guy's name, but they used the word molested.
Ooh, weird.
to describe the Bills' defense's treatment of Jim Harbaugh.
Oh,
which that's fun too.
That would never happen today.
Yeah, that would never happen today. But yeah, Jim Harbaugh is their quarterback, who is the fucking the coach, the Michigan coach now.
Right, that's right.
And he's also, it's funny to think too, because he's known for being like a hot-headed dickhead coach, and it's funny to think that he played under Mike Ditka. And maybe that has something to do with it.
That's funny.
So yes, I just thought that was interesting. They used the word molested a bunch of times for the Bills defense fucking hassling Jim Harbaugh. So yeah, then the Bears did literally nothing that entire third quarter. Nothing. Like they did, like right before they had to punt a couple more times, and Thurman Thomas, like right before the third quarter ended, Thurman Thomas had a long run, a sweeper on the right side where he broke for like 30 yards, and someone knocked it out of his hands from behind while he was running, and Donnell Wolford on the Bears picked it up and took it back like fucking 60 yards or some shit to deep in Bills territory. And that was like the first generation of offense, if you want to call a defensive fumble return offense in the entire quarter. So the Bills defense really stepped it up in the third quarter. And then there was the fourth quarter. Then there was the fourth quarter, yeah, and they had a catch up attempt with a Neil Anderson TD. The Bears did to get it to 21-13 to kind of make it sort of a game left with 8:45, and then it was such a fun game to watch. And then immediately they score that touchdown to get it within still two scores because there's no 2-point conversions back then, but 21-13, and then they kick it off. The Bills get the ball, and on the first fucking play, they had a 77-yard bomb to James Lofton for a touchdown. Yep. The Bills did. It was 28-13, and that was pretty much good night, Irene.
It was a good day to be a Bills fan.
Yeah, awesome, man. And then they fucking come out. The Bears come out and they trying to move the ball quickly. Had an interception that Kirby fucking Jackson picked off, and Thurman scored another TD. It was 35-13, and that's how it ended. So yeah, it was a tale of two halves game, which is pretty awesome, because it seemed like literally we don't know. I don't know. No, we've already said before, no research on the game going into it, so I'm sitting there watching it like, when the fuck, man, how is this team, the Bills 91 offense that scored like 500 something points that season, playing this shitty? And then they come out and fucking completely turn around and play a completely different half of football.
It was nice. It was a good day.
Yeah, super awesome. So yeah, stat line stuff. They had over 300 second half yards. Finished the day with like just under 500 total yards. Thurman dropped 100. Had a couple touchdowns, or maybe only one touchdown. Kelly was 19-29 for 305 and 3 TDs, no interceptions. So a perfect Bills game for what that team was in 91. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So that is the PDR, turn back the clock game. So that takes us to our last thing, the Phil Burke quiz show.
Oh, we're doing it again?
We're doing it again. That's so, like we said, it was so much suspense for the listener that how could we possibly pass it up? So here are the two things I went with. I got all Thermal Thomasy on these two questions, because he had such a good game, and I love Thurman Thomas. So you're never going to know it, but it's just such a, to me, interesting fucking stat that I couldn't help but go with it.
Okay.
Thurman Thomas's career passer rating. Can you take a guess?
8 out of 10.
Yeah. It was the quarterback scale. No, it's pretty much the worst possible rating you can have. It's 39.6. And his career stat line passing was 0 for 1 in 93 with the Bills. His incomplete pass. And then he was 0 for 0 with the 2000 Dolphins. Did you even remember that he played for the Dolphins for a year?
I sure didn't.
No, yeah. The Bills cut Bruce, Andre, and Thurman all at the same time.
Worked out real well.
Yeah, well, in '99, I mean,
I know.
That was the end of the line. So he threw 2 passes his entire career. One was an incomplete, he didn't even throw 2 passes. He threw 1 pass his entire career. He had 2 passing attempts or passing plays in his career. One of them was a sack. One of them was an incompletion, which I thought was interesting. That he never, as long as he played, they didn't have a single quarter, and that offense was supposedly so creative that they didn't have a single running back toss or anything where he threw the ball. It was whatever. I wish we should try to find the one play where he did with the Bills. And see what the pass looked like and who it was to. I'll try to find that. And then the other question, and this one's, I still don't think you're going to get it, but it's somewhat more reasonable of a question. How many years did Thurman lead the league in total yards from scrimmage? He led he did do it at least once. How many times did he lead this is passing and receiving, rushing and receiving. How many times did he do that?
4.
That's correct.
Hey!
Yeah.
Shot in the dark.
Correct. Yeah. It was 4 years in a row, which is awesome.
Wow.
It was 89 to 92. He did 1,913 yards in 89, 1,829 in 90, 2,038 in 91, and 2,113 in 92, which that's a hell of a run, man.
That is no pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. He was a fucking great running back.
Yeah.
As I'm staring at my signed mini helmet that I have sitting on my shelf.
Boy.
It's one of my prized possessions.
All right.
Okay, man. So fucking great success. Remote. It says we're still recording, so I think
that's
this
good.
exists now.
All right, groovy. Glad we did it.
So that's fucking everything. That's this edition of the PDR podcast. And again, you can listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher. Follow the podcast on Facebook. If you do kind of like what we're doing here, please do leave reviews and click likes or whatever the fuck it is on the platform that you're using, listening to us on. That stuff helps to get other people. Get this visible in front of other people and make it more fun for us that more people are hearing the bullshit that we're sputtering out.
A lot of bullshit.
Yeah, a ton of bullshit.
A lot of bullshit. You got to watch where you step around these parts.
Yeah, and you can follow us too, Phil, your shit.
Oh, I'm Philly Burks, and I think that's Instagram, and at Phil Burke Ninja on Twitter.
Yes, and I am at Josh Folan on Twitter and at My Shift Key is Broke on Instagram. And thanks for listening to our shit, and we'll talk at you next time.
All right.
Come on, let's win for Buffalo.